Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Mounties say they've discovered the remains of a woman reported missing near Sikh almost a decade ago, but the main suspect is dead. Plus, 2 years after he was shot dead in Surrey, there are more demands for answers in the killing of a Sikh activist.
Who are the individuals that paid these four shooters, or these four individuals, and where are they now?
And
we'll be connecting to the north side later this summer.
High Tour will take you onto the deck of the new Pattullo Bridge as it inches closer to completion.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. The RCMP have announced the discovery of the remains of a woman reported missing in the Sikh area nearly 8 years ago. Nicole Bell is one of several women who vanished in the North Okanagan and Shuswap regions in 2016 and 2017. As Brady Strachan explains, police say there's no danger to the public as the main suspect is dead.
This major update from the RCMP not only confirms Nicole Bell's death, it also mentions a suspect in Bell's death and that of another woman whose remains were also found in the Salmon Arm area.
In 2017, the RCMP announced an extensive search of a rural property on Salmon River Road in the Shuswap. Investigators put up visual barriers on the farm as they went about their search for several days. Eventually, they announced the discovery of 18-year-old Tracy Genereux, who had gone missing earlier that year. She was one of 5 women who disappeared in the region in 2017 and the year before. Although the RCMP never announced a suspect in Genereux's death, the property she was discovered on belonged to the family of Curtis Sagmoan. Sagmoan has a long history of assaults against sex trade workers. His court appearances in Vernon spurred protests by groups of people calling out violence against women and for justice for the missing women in the region. Now, police have announced the discovery of another one of those women. Nicole Bell was 31 when she was reported missing. Police say her remains were found on a rural property near Salmon Arm this past May, and they believe the primary suspect in her death is also the main suspect in Tracy Genereux's death. Curtis Sagmoan died this past April, and although police didn't name him in this latest update, they say there is no ongoing threat because the primary suspect is dead.
The RCMP declined an interview, telling CBC News they're still investigating both women's deaths and because they haven't yet ruled out other parties in these offenses. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Vancouver.
We have an update for you on the case of a Canadian Olympian turned fugitive. CBC News has learned Ryan Wedding may be linked to a massive cocaine bust in the Toronto area. Thomas Dagla has more on the possible connection to the FBI's most wanted Canadian.
When you see what's here before you today, it's impressive.
Showing off what they describe as nearly $50 million worth of cocaine, Peel Regional Police announced their biggest drug seizure ever. Now, a CBC News investigation finds that massive bust,
Ryan Wedding to the line,
may be linked to former Olympic snowboarder turned alleged crime boss Ryan Wedding, one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. He's accused of running a murderous drug trafficking network.
The likelihood of what's happening here in Peel being traced back to an organization like that is very high.
What's the likelihood that network's still active in your region?
Very likely.
Whoa. Last fall came a flurry of arrests from this Florida mansion to Colombia and Canada, all in hopes of dismantling Wedding's alleged criminal network. But in court documents we obtained, U.S. prosecutors say Wedding continues to traffic drugs while in hiding.
There certainly are elements of his network that remain in place, but I couldn't say much more than that at this time because of multiple ongoing investigations.
Peel police arrested these men in connection with that record cocaine haul moved across the U.S. border, mirroring the smuggling routes linked to Wedding. His accomplices stand accused of concealing cocaine bricks in secret truck compartments.
Cocaine is not manufactured in Canada. It can only come from outside of Canada, predominantly through the Mexican cartel and coming across the border.
Wedding is believed to be living in Mexico under cartel protection. The U.S. State Department is offering $10 million for information leading to his arrest.
Tips are always coming in.
And sending this message.
Ryan, we're getting tips every day. People are calling in. So you're next, buddy.
Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
It was a long time coming, but the new bridge linking Surrey and New Westminster is nearing completion. That new span will replace the notoriously overcrowded and deteriorating Pattullo Bridge in just a few 100 meters away. John Hernandez journeyed up, way up, onto the new deck to take a look at the construction underway.
The days of the old Pattullo Bridge are numbered, and its replacement quite literally looms over it. The new bridge is just months away from completion, so head engineer Wendy Itgawa agrees to take us on a tour starting below the bridge deck on a trestle. You could call it the first piece of this massive puzzle.
Building the trestle was a significant feature in itself, and that we had to go through the right permitting to put piles in the river. This was one of the first things we did on the project to complete before we could actually start working on the tower.
That tower completed just over a year ago. It's the tallest of its kind in BC at 167 meters high. Dozens of cables connect it to the bridge deck, which will soon span from New Westminster to Surrey. Crews make a 25-story climb to the deck to get to work.
And this is what's called the South Approach, connecting into King George Boulevard. We've completed the South Approach now, and we're just working on the finishing.
Finishing includes paving lanes and installing pedestrian and bike pathways. Meanwhile, on the north side, there's still an 80-meter hole with crews working on both sides to bridge the gap.
We're installing the cables and the deck, and we'll be connecting to the north side later this summer. Following that, we'll be completing the finishes, and the bridge will open later this fall.
About 450 construction workers are on site just about every day. Beside them, a soon-to-be relic of the past. Built in the 1930s, the 4-lane Pattullo Bridge serves more than 60,000 drivers daily. It's been the site of numerous crashes over the years, including 3 dead in February. Over the years, it's deteriorated, failing to keep up with modern seismic and safety standards.
So I guess this view shows the vulnerability of the piers to ship impact. There is no protection around the piers.
That means it's fairly urgent to get the final financing plan put in place.
A bridge replacement was approved by the province in 2018 for about $1.3 billion. Its 2023 completion date hit by back-to-back delays. The budget has since swelled by about $300 million. Meanwhile, mayors on both sides of the water at continued odds over its 4-lane structure.
This must be a 6-lane bridge.
If we're going to be a world-class city, we need active transportation and rapid transit, not no more congested road lanes.
The province says the new bridge could eventually be expanded into 6 lanes should the need arise. For now, it's full steam ahead on getting this job done by fall. The clock is ticking, but the end is in sight. John Hernandez, CBC News, Surrey.
It has been 2 years now since the killing of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was gunned down outside the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara in Surrey in 2023. His death led to damaged relations between Canada and India. As Jessica Chung explains, many in the community are still looking for more answers and accountability.
Dozens gathered outside the Consulate General of India in Vancouver to mark the 2-year anniversary of the death of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
I think we haven't seen any cooperation from India. We haven't seen any type of responsibility taken for what they've done here.
The pro-Khalistan activist was gunned down outside the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara in Surrey in 2023. The killing fueled ongoing tensions between Canada and India. At the time, former Prime Minister Justice Justin Trudeau accused India's government of being involved in the death, something Indian officials deny. 4 Indian nationals have since been charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with Nijjar's death. Now, that's brought some relief to the community, but many are still calling for answers.
But we are missing a big significant piece, which is that who are the individuals that paid these 4 shooters or these 4 individuals, and where are they now? And are they still in Canada, and are they still looking for more targets?
We hear about this back in India, but the fact that it happened on our soil where we are citizens, it attacks our citizenship and our freedom.
This comes as Prime Minister Mark Carney wrapped up his G7 meeting with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Carney said it was a necessary step to rebuilding the relationship between the two countries. He was asked about whether he spoke to Modi about the claims that Indian state agents were behind the death, but didn't directly answer.
We have had a discussion, the Prime Minister and I, about the importance of having the law enforcement to law enforcement dialogue, which is not just dialogue, cooperation.
They have to recognize India for what it is, like, a few trade deals, and we're exchanging lives for that. And how can that possibly be the right way to do business or even the right way to run this country?
The Sikh Federation of Canada is calling for a public inquiry into the alleged role the Indian government played in Nijjar's death, saying that Canada's sovereignty and safety are at stake. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Vancouver.
A new CSIS report, meanwhile, says Canada must remain vigilant about potential foreign interference from India. As Evan Dyer reports, it comes as Ottawa agrees to renew diplomatic ties with that country after nearly 2 years of tensions.
It was all smiles as Prime Minister Mark Carney greeted India's Narendra Modi in Kananaskis. Nothing to indicate that one of the two leads a government the RCMP says is behind a campaign of violence on the other's territory.
The team has learned a significant amount of information about the breadth and depth of criminal activity orchestrated by agents of the government of India.
In Surrey, the Sikh community continues to suffer extortion from members of the Bishnoi gang, which the Mounties say has acted as a proxy for the Indian government. In Mississauga, the Bishnoi gang also claimed the recent murder of Sikh businessman Harjit Singh Dada, shot outside his office after extortion demands.
Still, they are getting extortion calls. Still, they are getting threatening letters. So they are thinking that Canadian government is more focusing on economy than public safety.
This is an issue of huge concern in the community there, particularly the South Asian community. It's an issue of concern in Alberta and Ontario as well.
BC Premier David Eby says he's writing to the PM to ask that the Bishnois be listed as a terrorist organization. The federal response is, we'll see.
Look, the national security apparatus are continuously assessing organizations that we may consider listing as entities under the criminal code.
Ananda Sangari says the Carney government isn't ignoring the RCMP's warnings about the Indian government's role, which were echoed by a CSIS report today that says New Delhi is still bent on interfering in Canada.
Of course, we've had difficult conversations with the Indian government, and that will continue.
I think that this government does mean business, and I think that Mark Carney will, whenever there's any indication that they're stepping out of line, we've got the capacity now through CSIS, the RCMP, and other intelligence agencies to basically call them out.
Former diplomat Robertson says he believes Carney and Modi would have discussed these matters even if no public commitments were made, and that Canada's overall relationship with India is too important to derail over one issue. Canada's Sikhs are just hoping that they are not the sacrifice at the wedding. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi here for a look at the weather. Busy day across the South Coast and beyond.
Yes, I would say so. Cloud coming in and out, a few showers this morning for some areas. I also want to mention that we did have some thunderstorm activity over in the eastern parts of the Fraser Valley earlier today. That was in the early afternoon. And if we zoom out to the rest of the province, you can see in the interior a lot more of that activity than what we had here on the coast. Severe thunderstorm watches and warnings earlier today for much of the province, some of those continuing as that lightning continues to move up through that area, keeping a close eye on it. The fire danger has started to come down, as you can see here, but in part of that area. But you can see it's slowly starting to climb back up, especially in the southern interior, but in parts of the Peace as well. Dan?
Okay. Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We know generally what things can be recycled, but how that process works is less well known. After the break, a closer look at a glass recycling plant in the Fraser Valley. Stick around.
I'm Stephen Quinn, and I love living here in Vancouver, BC. It's a city with world-renowned beauty, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. In our new daily podcast, This is Vancouver, we're exploring the diverse range of issues and stories in the city, the good, the bad, and everything in between, as told by the people who live it every day. Don't miss This is Vancouver, available wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll talk to you soon.
You may not know this, but not everything you put in your blue bin will end up being recycled. But when it comes to glass in BC, we may have reached true zero waste. Our Darius Madavi went to Abbotsford to learn how one company is changing the game.
How does this become this? This is EnviroRock. It's strong, it's light, and it's made from recycled glass bottles. A lot of people are skeptical of recycling programs, and often with good reason. But let me show you how this could mean true zero waste. And it all starts when you drop this off at a recycling depot. The first stop for that bottle is this facility in Abbotsford. Is it this loud all day? All day. As you can hear, thousands of bottles shuffle down these conveyor belts every day.
It's just glass hitting glass.
This facility sorts glass based on what's going to happen to it next. What's behind me is the best of the best. It's furnace ready. It's going to be turned into bottles and other new products. The rest of it is what gets turned into other things, like EnviroRock.
At the total end of the line, and this is what it looks like when it's all finished.
Inside, the bottles you drop off at the return depot are processed, separated into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
This is as good as it gets. This goes back into new bottles.
The bad and the ugly were once considered waste, but now they have their own journey to go on, to a special recycling facility in Quesnel, BC.
Everything you see on the floor will end up in Quesnel, and that could be a piece of foam rock in a year or a day.
So what exactly is EnviroRock? How do you go from glass dust to this?
It's literally very similar to baking a cake. Instead of flour, you have glass powder. And instead of baking soda, we use I can't tell you which one, but we use a specific foaming agent. And then instead of wax paper, we use fiberglass mesh. We run it through this oven at 850 degrees Celsius. It puffs up from 1 inch to 3.5 inches. And when it comes out of the oven, it hits the ambient air temperature, and because it's rapidly cooling, it shrinks and it fractures.
And you end up with chunks like this.
If you think of an aero bar, when you break it in half, it has all those little bubbles in, that's exactly what our rock looks like.
EnviroCorp says they're the first in Canada to produce EnviroRock, although it's been used in other countries for decades.
It's been in Europe for 30 years, but I would say 999 people have never heard of this out of 1,000.
So what is it used for? Those bubbles in the EnviroRock are the key. The goal is to replace styrofoam, which is often used in certain construction projects. And they say they're getting buy-in already.
So we've actually used it on a soccer field in the greater Vancouver region. There, it's sitting over top of an old bog or a swamp-like material. We're using it underneath the road on Fraser Highway in preparation for the SkyTrain. We've used it under concrete slabs for foundations because then it can act like radon mitigation and styrofoam all in one.
Why do so few cities have proper glass recycling programs?
Cheap to dump. So they're not going to send it to us and pay us to, sort it, clean it, wash it, ship it, get it ready for, the next stage of recycling.
But that might be changing. In June of 2025, the city of Abbotsford started their own curbside glass recycling program. Now, instead of being dumped in a landfill, virtually every shard of it will have a new life, which could be in a new Corona bottle or a new SkyTrain station.
And so now we've basically closed the loop. We are as close as we possibly can right now to a zero waste company.
Next time you're dropping a bottle off at the recycling depot or in the bin, know that every single fragment of glass, right down to the dust on the facility floor, can be reused. Nothing is waste. Darius Madavi, CBC News, Vancouver.
A view from high up on Mount Revelstoke and a rainstorm rolling through the valley below, as you can well see. There are mixed forecasts across the province, and Darius will be back with your BC-wide weather picture after this. The outcome is almost unbelievable and a massive relief. After 4 days of searching, police have found Claire Bell alive. The missing 3-year-old was spotted alone from the sky in Ontario. Kwabena Odiro tells us police say she was talking and in good shape.
After a desperate search that lasted 4 days, an outcome few expected. Quebec Provincial Police confirmed that a 3-year-old missing girl was found alive in St. Albert, Ontario. They say that Ontario Provincial Police spotted Claire Bell just off Highway 417. She was said to be walking by herself, dehydrated and weak, but unbelievably alive.
We were today feeling that we were advancing, and we had some leads, new leads, and so that's the best scenario possible.
Over the past 4 days, investigators scoured areas on and west of the island of Montreal. Then, a development. They announced they were looking for a woman who had spoken to the girl's mother Sunday, shortly before she was reported missing. They managed to find and speak to the woman, who confirmed Claire and her mother were in the area, shortly before she was reported missing on Sunday.
Because of that, we asked our partners to do some search, and they've been able to locate the young girl on the side of the Highway 417. So she was speaking with the police officer. She was alive.
The girl has been taken to hospital for further checkups. This all began on Sunday when the girl's mother showed up at a business in Coteau-du-Lac, west of Montreal, saying that her daughter was missing. Claire had last been seen Saturday in the Montreal neighborhood of La Salle. Earlier in the day, her mother was briefly back in court. Rachel Todd appeared in handcuffs. She is facing a charge of child abandonment. Her lawyer asked for the case to be delayed until Friday, when we expect a date for a bail hearing could be set. She will be back in court in person on June 20th. Meanwhile, the girl's father posted on social media thanking everyone involved and asking people to allow him and his family time with the girl. Kwabena Odiro, CBC News, Coteau-du-Lac.
We have an update now to a CBC News investigation about a missing painting believed to be by one of Canada's greatest artists, and a multi-million-dollar lawsuit that followed. As Farah Morali shows us, the artwork has reappeared, but the mystery is far from over.
So I have a wonderful surprise for you, Farah. This is Dr. Murray's Tom Thompson painting that we have recovered.
A glimpse of a painting so few have seen in real life, and until just a few weeks ago, was missing.
We were very, very pleased that it had been recovered.
In January, CBC News first investigated the disappearance of the roughly 8x12 painting, a depiction of Tea Lake Dam in Ontario's Algonquin Park. It's believed to be an unsigned painting by renowned Canadian artist Tom Thompson. Its owner, Michael Murray, says in 2015 he arranged for it to be sold at Toronto's Waddington's auctioneers and appraisers. After they told him the painting wasn't there, he filed an $11 million lawsuit. Court documents show the auction house initially denied ever having it. That is, until last month.
Mr. Bookman called me and said, "You're not going to believe it, but the painting has been found. It's at Waddington's." And it was almost disbelief.
So where has the painting been since 2015? A lawyer from Waddington's told us they can't comment because the matter is before the courts. Murray's lawyer says all he was told was that the painting was found in a climate-controlled storeroom in the facility.
We would always leave from...
Though now found, Bookman says they're still moving ahead with the lawsuit, seeking damages for the years the painting was missing.
So 10 years, it's been gone.
Murray says while he's relieved it's back, he still has many questions.
There is an interest on my side to kind of understand, how it could be missing for 10 years and then all of a sudden show up.
A mystery Murray acknowledges he may never unravel.
There's a lot of similarities between that mystery and, Tom Thompson's mysterious passing.
For now, he's looking to find a buyer for a painting with a backstory more colorful than the pigments on the canvas. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Growing up can be overwhelming for all sorts of reasons. But some Canadian teens have to juggle an added stress, looking after an ailing family member. Experts say the number of young caregivers will only grow as Canada's population ages. And as Jennifer Yoon explains, a new case study says they need more support.
Najir Rahman has been caring for her mom, who has ALS, since she was 7.
Sometimes I would try to help her with the wheelchair, but it was a lot bigger than me. 1, 2, 3.
Now 17 years old, Rahman says she's only just realizing her responsibilities aren't so ordinary.
Like, oh yeah, this isn't like normal. I am doing things that are like a bit beyond what I should be doing.
About 1.5 million people between the ages of 15 and 30 look after loved ones with long-term health problems. Studies suggest they're at higher risk of mental health challenges, social isolation, and falling behind in school.
Caregivers might not even realize that they are caregivers until there starts to be detrimental effects to their mental health or their well-being.
This 18-year-old has seen it firsthand, caring for his ailing grandfather.
I felt both proud to be looking after someone that I really, really care about, but also I was feeling quite overwhelmed.
The experience inspired him to co-author a recent case study in the journal Canadian Family Physician, urging family doctors to identify young caregivers and help them get support. But others say it's not just up to family doctors.
And I've seen some young carers just kind of break down and cry.
This internal medicine specialist treats complex and chronic diseases. She says seemingly simple tasks, doctors and nurses writing notes for school absences or talking through anxieties about prognosis, can really help.
I think all healthcare providers can provide, can recognize, can play a role and recognize and support young caregivers.
She says Canada could also learn from the UK's approach. Young caregivers' rights are enshrined in the law there, and they're entitled to help like respite care. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
For a 6th day now, Israel and Iran continued their air and missile attacks on each other. Iran's supreme leader is rejecting American calls for surrender as Donald Trump says he's weighing his next move. Chris Brown has more from Jerusalem.
Even though Israel has continued to attack Iran's nuclear facilities and its other parts of the government, it does feel like the tempo has slowed somewhat of this war as we may be entering what could be a new phase. On the one hand, Israel's military strikes are doing damage, including to a facility that made centrifuges, but the really key part of its nuclear program remains out of reach. That requires U.S. bunker-busting bombs in order to get at. On the other hand, for Iran, it initially fired more than 100 ballistic missiles at Israel for the first few nights of this war, but the tempo has definitely slowed, as have the reports of damage. Iran could be running out of these missiles, could be unable to launch them, or maybe deliberately holding back in case it needs them if the U.S. starts attacking as well. The country's supreme ruler said he would not surrender, answering to Donald Trump, essentially throwing the next big decision in where this conflict goes back to the U.S. president. I may do it, I may not do it. No one knows, said Trump, seemingly even himself unsure whether he's going to order the U.S. to attack. The risk is obviously immense. If the U.S. does attack and fails to destroy these underground facilities, Iran could respond asymmetrically, for example, by blocking shipping in the Gulf of Hormuz, and that would cause immense disruption to the global economy. On the broader question of what are the objectives of this war now, is it still about destroying the nuclear program, or perhaps has it moved on to replacing the entire regime in Iran? Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has often spoken about this, talking in English to Iranians, trying to emphasize the historical connections between Jewish and Persian people. And with every tactical success on the ground, it's felt more and more that this has become the Israeli objective. Why stop at eliminating just the nuclear program when we can get rid of the whole regime as well? On the other hand, we're really not hearing a whole lot or seeing a whole lot of indications from Iranians that they want to trade in their own despotic bunch of rulers for another group of leaders, possibly even picked by another country. They may not like this regime, a lot of them, but they also don't like seeing Israel bomb their country and kill their people. Chris Brown, CBC News in Jerusalem.
Palestinians and their supporters say the fighting between Israel and Iran is pulling global attention away from the increasingly dire situation in Gaza. Local health officials say at least 140 people were killed in Israeli airstrikes and gunfire since Tuesday. As Margaret Evans explains, some were killed while trying to get food aid.
Ghostly images of journeys laced with peril. Gazans desperate to feed their families, risking increasingly dangerous treks to aid centers like this one along Gaza's Netzarim corridor. Thank God that I got through, says Mohammed Abu Jiab, despite the danger. That was before Israeli troops reportedly opened fire on the crowds, killing 11 people. The military says it fired warning shots and wasn't aware of injuries. It also accuses Hamas of trying to loot the sites. The UN is calling on Israel to cease the use of lethal force near aid distribution centers. It says more than 400 Palestinians have been killed by gunfire or shelling near those sites since the end of May, when a controversial group was brought in by Israel to replace UN agencies. Some families who wait for sons or fathers to come home with food eventually find them at a hospital morgue. Firas Abu Al-Qas lost his cousin.
They killed him. Tell them just he wanted to get some food for children.
At night, Gazans can see the missiles flying back and forth between Israel and Iran in the skies overhead, taking with them much of the world's attention.
Nobody's talking about the war in Gaza. Nobody is talking about hostages. And nobody is talking about, well, what's going on the ground in Gaza right now.
Ksenia Svetlova is an analyst and a former member of the Israeli Knesset.
Whether this is the intentional outcome or something that is a byproduct of this war, but this is definitely the consequence.
Svetlova says it has also boosted the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's domestic standing and potentially amongst Western nations deeply troubled by Israel's actions in Gaza, but that also view Iran as a threat to international security. In Gaza, many will tell you they're already used to their plight being ignored by the outside world, even as it worsens day by day. The only thing they have left to hold on to, they say, is their grief. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
It has been 2 years since the Titan submersible imploded. Now a new CBC The Nature of Things documentary is looking to some of the reasons for that tragedy. We'll have more after this.
Guess what's back? That's right, CBC Musical Nooners are returning to Vancouver all summer long. Every Wednesday, starting July 2nd, hit up the CBC Outdoor Plaza for free concerts. We'll have prizes, theme days, and so many talented musicians you won't want to miss out. Wednesdays, 700 Hamilton Street at, well, noon. For the full lineup, head to cbc.ca/musicalnooners, and we'll see you there.
A volcanic eruption in eastern Indonesia has forced several villages to evacuate and is impacting travel throughout the area. Several blasts sent ash as high as 5,000 meters into the sky, the massive plume visible 150 kilometers away. Indonesian authorities raised their alert to the most dangerous on Tuesday, recommending people leave the surrounding area. Thousands have also been affected by flight delays and cancellations, including people going to and from the busy resort island of Bali. No injuries or deaths have been reported. Mount Loa Tobi Lucky is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. An eruption last November killed 9 people and injured dozens more.
The weather update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Support BC Cancer Foundation by leaving a gift in your will and join our 90-year legacy of driving life-saving innovations.
Darius Madava here with the BC Wide Weather Forecast. The Northeast continues to be a busy place in our province.
That is right, and I am thankful for all the rain that we got up there over the weekend, and we have some more showers actually on the way. So hopefully suppressing that fire danger once again, another 10 millimeters to up to maybe 30 millimeters in some isolated spots possible over the next couple days up by Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, that sort of area up in the Peace. But again, really important that we're getting that just given how much lightning we're getting in this area, and that will likely continue to return. I mean, this is an area where we typically see a lot of lightning, but it is something else when you can see all those strikes happening on the screen. This is hundreds of lightning strikes happening an hour throughout this area. I want to talk a little bit about the rain that we're expecting to get. You can see some more showers expected to come up to the Peace over the next few days. Actually, the big day for showers up in places like Fort St. John will likely be tomorrow with more rain on the way there. Again, 10 millimeters isn't a lot of rain for most areas, but in an area that is stricken by drought, it's a good amount to get where it's not going to overwhelm the ability of the ground to absorb it while still providing a little bit of drought relief. We're getting our next drought update tomorrow, and I'm hoping to see a little bit of improvement in an area that has been under level 4 drought conditions for a very long time and now maybe has a chance to see that budge a little bit. Here are our fire perimeters. As of now, we haven't seen too much growth, again, because of those suppressed conditions. Over the next couple of days, we will also likely see some of that smoke and haze that we've, surface smoke at least, that we've seen up in the Northeast start to lift a little bit, so a little bit of alleviation. That special air quality statement that we've had more or less consistently up in that part of the province maybe has a chance of coming down at least briefly, although it is still a lot of smoke being put off by those fires, even though we have seen some improvement, especially in terms of that precipitation and the temperatures. Speaking of which, our highs over the next few days don't change all that much for most areas, although as we get into Friday, we may see a bit of a dip here on the coast. Inland area is still a little bit warmer than places by the water, but definitely seeing a bit of a drop. And then the interior joins us in that respect on Saturday as well. Pretty big drop for them, especially compared to Friday, 5 to 10 degrees for some areas. Our conditions across the province tomorrow, again, still a little bit smoky, but that might start to lift a little bit more once we get into the end of the week. And a few more lightning storms possible, but a lot less widespread than they were today, mostly just looking at that in the Caribou tomorrow. And here's our conditions over the next few days. Dan, expect again some mixed skies tomorrow, sunnier a bit in the afternoon. And Saturday afternoon is also looking sunnier than it was earlier this week. So I'm sure some people are happy for that this weekend.
No kidding. Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
2 years since the deadly Titan implosion, a film co-produced by CBC's The Nature of Things is investigating the critical signs of imminent disaster. What happened on Dive 80 and why those warning signs were ignored. Anthony Morgan, host of CBC's The Nature of Things, shows us the moment the sub's fate was sealed.
The following year, Alfred Hagen finally got the chance to fulfill his dream.
It was one of those moments where you embrace the possibilities, you embrace the unknown, and you find that you're in that moment, you're living a life trembling with joy. That's the essence of what I felt.
Platform trigger line, we'll get you in place. Titan is a go for a dive to the Titanic.
unlocked.
We're unlocked. Okay.
I remembered how passionate we were at that moment, how excited I was to see this iconic shipwreck and to go deeper than I'd ever gone before, I'd ever imagined.
Oh my God, that's it, yeah.
We're just on it now, above here.
Oh yeah.
That's the funnel number 1.
We're going to slowly start taking it out.
The trip ended with an alarming noise.
You can see the surface almost. We were ascending in the Titan. We were actually fairly close to the surface, as I remember, and we heard a loud crack, which sounded like the ship breaking apart. But it was very loud, it was very dramatic, and everyone sat up and like, what was that? And it was certainly concerning because we didn't understand what it was.
We will now hear virtual testimony from Miss Antonella Wilby, former Ocean Gate contractor. Ms. Wilby, can you hear us?
I can.
Thank you for your time today. Ms. Wilby, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I was really impressed that Ms. Wilby contacted us, and said, hey, I'm willing to go on the record in a very high-profile setting, and gave us some really critical testimony.
So as I understand it, you were present during Dive 80 on July 15th, 2022, where a loud bang was heard upon surfacing. Am I correct?
Yes.
Can you please tell me in detail about what you know about that dive?
I wanted to say something before the next dive because they were going to be diving the sub a couple days later.
After Dive 80, one of the customers had said, I heard a bang. And I heard that and I was just like shocked. I brought up the possibility of delamination and I asked him, are you gonna keep diving the sub? And he said, yeah, we'll do the next mission and then we'll visually inspect it when we get back.
Delamination is essentially a parting of the carbon fiber. When they heard this loud bang, there should have been all stop, do not continue, investigate further.
FRC, we see them now for 9 o'clock, about 450 meters out.
I was just shocked. Like, you don't need to be a composites expert to see that and think, okay, maybe we need to step back and stop the operation until we figure out what this actually means.
So the purple you see here, this is the acoustic data that was found or heard on Dive 80. This purple line, there was a loud bang. There is this huge amplitude. Their system said there has been a fundamental change in the material of your carbon fiber, and it was no longer structurally sound.
It's an open book here. Do you have any questions about what's going on, about carbon fiber problems we had, rumors of problems we had, actual problems we had? When we got to the surface, Scott was piloting, he heard a really loud bang. Not a soothing sound, no. But on the surface, and as Tim and PH will attest, almost every deep diving sub makes a noise at some point.
Basically, it's like, pay attention to this, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We're gonna work on to talk about all these different little things. No one actually notices, wait a second, like, there's a bigger problem here. It felt like watching like some really bizarre surrealist movie or something. Sort of like, what's the old story, the emperor has new clothes, right? And only one person is saying, wait a second.
That's it, let's go.
And what we have come to the conclusion was there was a delamination on Dive 80 upon surfacing at 2:46 p.m. local time. Everyone that stepped on board the Titan after Dive 80 was risking their life.
A group of young Squamish musicians had the chance to practice their Grizzly song in front of a live audience. You will want to see this. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC inbox. CBC is the exclusive media partner of the Indian Summer Festival, July 4th to 13th. The theme of Borderless Solidarities invites audiences into spaces of shared breath, joyful defiance, and deep listening. Tickets at indiansummerfest.ca, and CBC's Musical Nooners is back on July 2nd. It's a free, family-friendly concert series that brings together community, culture, and live music every Wednesday at noon.
A video of young Indigenous drummers from the Squamish Nation has gone viral.
It shows them performing a song near the bear enclosure on Grouse Mountain, and grizzlies came out to listen. More now from Amelia John.
It's an incredible moment caught on camera. The proud little warriors performing outside the grizzly bear habitat on Grouse Mountain in North Vancouver.
I felt so blessed when they came really close to us, and then my first time seeing a grizzly bear. It felt so awesome and so exciting to sing to the bears.
For the past 6 months, these 10 and 11-year-old musicians have been practicing here at the Chief Joe Mathias Rec Center within their traditional territory of the Squamish Nation.
It's all about kind of like connecting to our culture and like singing and honoring the animals that we're singing for.
Over the weekend, video of the boys went viral after they came across Kula and Grinder. They couldn't see the bears at first. That's when they sang their grizzly song and coaxed them out.
And I thought it was kind of supernatural. I really like looking into supernatural stuff because if you keep looking, it always looks like it always shows up.
Their video has more than 1 million views and counting.
I shed a tear when they were singing up at Grouse Mountain, just because, how proud I am to see how far they've come.
They're now getting messages from people halfway around the world.
I'm happy, that to get our language and our culture out there, let people know that we're still here, that we're still speaking our language, and, we know our culture and our songs, and that the Squamish Nation people are still here.
The proud little warriors have several more performances coming up and plan to keep singing to honor their language and culture. Amelia John, CBC News, West Vancouver.
Supernatural.
What an experience.
No kidding.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on our free app, CBC Gem, YouTube, and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And we'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National. Good night.